You wake up motivated, not a little motivated, fully locked in. You clean your desk, open your laptop, make a perfect plan. Today feels different. And then, 3 days later, it's gone. No disaster, no crisis, no big failure, just silence. You stopped again. And if you've noticed this pattern repeating, there's something uncomfortable hiding underneath it. Because the real reason students can't stay consistent isn't laziness. It's not lack of discipline, and it's definitely not because you don't want it enough. It's something much quieter, much more mechanical, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because consistency isn't a personality trait, it's a system. And most students are unknowingly trapped inside a system designed to break it. Let's zoom in. A typical student decides to get consistent. They pick a habit, study daily, work out, wake up early, and for the first few days, they do it. Energy is high. Motivation is carrying everything. But here's the part nobody talks about. Motivation is front-loaded. It spikes at the beginning. Then it drops fast. And once it drops, something else is supposed to take over. A system. But most students don't have one. So when motivation disappears, there's nothing left to support the behavior. And that's where consistency dies. Not dramatically, quietly. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because even when students try to build a system, they accidentally build the wrong one. Let me explain. Every habit has two layers, the visible layer and the invisible one. The visible layer is what you think you're doing. Study 3 hours, go to the gym, be consistent. Simple, clear, measurable. But underneath that, there's something else. Friction. And friction decides everything. Friction is how hard it feels to start, not continue. Start. And your brain is extremely sensitive to this. In fact, it follows a brutal rule. If something feels even slightly harder than expected, it delays it. Not forever, just later. And that later quietly becomes never. Pause. Now here's the problem. Students design habits based on outcomes, not friction. They ask, what should I do? Instead of, how easy is it to start? So they build systems that look good on paper, but feel heavy in real life. And friction builds up fast. Opening a book isn't just opening a book, it's find the right chapter, clear your desk, ignore your phone, fight the urge to check something, deal with confusion, try to focus. That's not one action, that's a chain. And your brain sees the whole chain instantly. So even if each step is small, together, they feel expensive. And your brain avoids expensive actions. Not because you're weak, because it's efficient. Now here's the uncomfortable math. Let's say starting your habit needs 5 units of effort. And your energy that day is also 5. In theory, it should work, but your brain doesn't work on equality. It needs surplus. If effort equals energy, it still feels heavy, so it delays. That's why consistency breaks, even when your plan is reasonable, because reasonable is not enough. It has to feel easy, and most student routines don't. Now layer something else on top, uncertainty. Because effort alone doesn't kill consistency, uncertainty does. If your brain isn't sure an action will lead to a reward, it resists more. Think about this. Scrolling your phone? Guaranteed reward. Instant. No effort. But studying? Maybe it helps. Maybe not. Maybe you understand. Maybe you don't. Your brain sees this and decides. High effort, uncertain outcome, bad deal. So it delays. Again. And here's the irony. The more important something is, the more uncertain it feels, which means the more resistance it creates. So the things that matter most become the hardest to stay consistent with. Now add one more layer. Identity. Students don't just want consistency, they want to become someone. Disciplined, focused, reliable. So every time they fail, it doesn't feel small. It feels like proof. I'm not that person. And now, starting the habit isn't just effort, it's risk. What if I fail again? What if this is just another phase? So your brain protects you by avoiding it. No attempt, no failure. No failure, no damage. Safe, but stuck. And this is where most advice fails. It says, be disciplined. Just show up. Stay consistent. But that assumes the system works. It ignores friction, ignores uncertainty, ignores emotional risk. So students try harder inside a broken system. And when it fails, they blame themselves instead of the structure. Now flip it. What does real consistency look like? Mechanically, not motivationally, mechanically. It looks boring, almost too easy. Because strong systems don't rely on energy, they remove the need for it. They shrink friction so much that starting feels automatic. For example, instead of study 3 hours, it becomes open the book, read 1 page. Sounds useless, too small. But underneath, you're lowering the entry cost. And once you start, momentum takes over. Because continuing is easier than starting, always. But most students skip this. They chase intensity, not consistency. And intensity feels powerful at first. But it's unstable. It spikes, then crashes. Consistency is the opposite. It feels slow, almost invisible, but it compounds, quietly. And that's where the gap begins, between people who try hard and people who actually move forward. Now zoom out. This isn't just about habits, it's about time. Most students think in days, maybe weeks, but real change works on longer timelines, months, years. And here's the uncomfortable part. In the short term, consistency looks like nothing. No results, no transformation, just repetition, which makes it easy to quit. Because your brain expects feedback, and when it doesn't see it, it assumes this isn't working. But that assumption is wrong. Because consistency gives delayed returns, and delayed returns are invisible until suddenly they're not. One day, things click, but that moment is built on hundreds of invisible repetitions. And most students quit before that, not because they can't do it, but because they never saw it working. So they stopped too early. Now here's the bigger risk. If you keep relying on motivation, you'll always restart. Short bursts, long gaps. It feels like movement, but it's a loop. And loops are dangerous because they feel productive, but they don't accumulate. So years pass, and you're still at the beginning, just more aware, more frustrated, saying the same thing. I know what to do, I just don't do it. And that sentence is the system revealing itself. Because knowing isn't the problem. Execution isn't even the problem. The structure is. So the real question isn't, how do I stay consistent? It's, what is making consistency feel difficult in the first place? Because once you remove that, consistency stops being something you chase and starts being something that happens. Quietly, repeatedly, almost boringly. And that's when it becomes powerful. Because now, it compounds. And when something compounds, it doesn't ask. It grows. So here's the thought to sit with. If consistency feels hard, it's not a test of discipline. It's a signal. Something in your system is off. And until that changes, nothing else will. So next time you stop, don't ask, what's wrong with me? Ask something better, more precise. What exactly made starting feel heavy today? Because that answer is where the real problem is hiding. And most people never look there.